Good evening. Last week we mentioned we were going to go and visit a new organ and present it. Unfortunately, we had to cancel that. The organ wasn't actually free for us on the date we hoped, and we'll have to do that again in a couple of weeks' time. So we're back in Herschbach at my organ again, and I thought we'd start down in the church today, and I thought I'd show you the actual organ itself. Some people had commented that the organ, or that they thought the organ was an electric organ. Well, no, not really. It's a Baroque case, as you can see. That's the original organ case that came with the original organ that stayed in the church. Church is from the 1700s, and pretty much only the organ case is original. Some of the original pipework is still there, but in 1915, a local organ builder sort of modernized it. If you imagine 1915 was modern, I suppose it was then, certainly not 100 years later now. Changed the pipework, turned it into a sort of more romantic sounding organ. And then again in the 50s, another organ builder came along and electrified the console and added a couple of stops and changed it. Back in its day, in the 1700s, when this organ was originally installed, it was the largest organ here in this part of Germany. It was a 3-manual organ with quite a number of stops. Apparently it was a rather delicious instrument, but like I say, there's unfortunately nothing much left now. Okay, so before we head upstairs to the organ, a very quick word about the equipment we've got here. In the last couple of videos, I've sort of been asking for some support or even donations towards the channel, and a couple of people, or a few people by now, have actually done that, and thank you very much indeed for that. That's really rather wonderful. And as I've said, everything that comes in on these channels is actually going to be put back into, is reinvested in the channel, in equipment. And the first thing we're going to invest in is a decent set of microphones. Now, if you have a look up here, we've already got some studio microphones there, and they're not the best studio microphones for this job. They're good microphones, but not for this job. We've got a huge church with a huge acoustic. Now, you can probably hear it better over this little microphone that I've got here. I've already bought this, by the way. This is, so no donations necessary for that. These microphones only really pick up what's in front of them. Yeah, they're real studio microphones, so if you've got a couple of musicians around, it only picks up what they're doing and not what the other musicians are doing. Perfect for that scenario, but in a church where you need to get the whole acoustic, the whole room, including the organ sound, and the acoustic, and the reflections, well, that's probably too loud for that, sorry about that, then you need not these microphones with a cardioid pattern, that's what it's called, you need omnidirectional microphones. And they're also better set up to pick up low frequencies that you need for organ music. Yeah? This organ, it's all right. The notes go down to about 30 hertz or there. So these microphones can manage that. But some of the bigger organs we visit, where the notes go an octave lower, they're going right down to under 20 hertz. Yeah? You can hardly hear them, but real professional microphones are able to pick that up. And that's something we're looking at for the future. So, before we head upstairs, a quick look at what we've got here. Microphone stand improvised on a table, and then the cables from the microphones come into this box, and I can plug into up to 8 microphones there, so that's useful for the future. And then that's a very, very long cable, about sort of 50 feet or something, and that takes us all the way up to where the organ console is, where we've got the laptop set up with a little interface so we can record the sound for the videos. I think it's time to get on with that, don't you? So here we are back at the console. You've seen the pipes. This is the console. We've been at this organ many times before. Now, as we said, we were planning to visit another organ today and demonstrate that for you, and it didn't quite work. So we thought, what are we going to do instead? We can't leave a week out where we don't do anything. And well, we're getting very close to our 10,000 subscriber mark. Remember when we said you're going to get Toccata and Fugue in D minor by Bach when we reach 10,000? Well, it's the beginning of April, and we've pretty much hit 7,000 already. So in March alone, there were over 3,000. So I think that's definitely going to be here by the end of April. So I'm going to learn the piece now, and I'm going to show you how we're going to go about doing that. The big problem is I'm not sure if I'm actually going to fit in my kilt by the end of April, by the time we get this ready. I'm putting myself on a bit of a diet as well. This has to go. So, on with the show. Here it is, the wonderful piece of music that everyone seems to request, Toccata and Fugue in D minor, BWV 565. And many years ago, I think when I came to Germany first, I bought the whole of Bach's organ works in a full set, a boxed set, these wonderful big, easy to read books of music, and over the years, I've played quite a bit of music from these works, thankfully. And actually, I first learnt the Toccata and Fugue when I was a rather young chap back in Scotland. I think I was probably 15 or 16, so we're talking 30 years ago. That was with my first organ teacher. And you know, when you're a young organist, everybody wants to play it. It's the first piece everybody wants to learn. And I learnt it then, and since then, I don't think I've played it once. So it's now time to relearn it. And I'm going to show you how we're going to go about doing that today. And we're going to start with the feet. So before we get into the meat of our Toccata and Fugue, I wanted to sort of show you a few basics of pedal technique. And it's not difficult. You've got a left foot and a right foot. And on a modern pedal board, you can use your left foot, you can play with the toes, or you can play with the heels. Same with the right foot. Or you can swap between them. Okay? So basically, if you can tap dance, you can play the organ. Does it work the other way around? Can you tap dance if you can play the organ? I will try. Not today, though. So, when I started learning the organ, my first organ teacher back in Scotland, he was a bit of a traditionalist when it came to pedal technique, especially when it came to playing the pedals in Bach's music. And here's a piece of music I learnt with him all those years ago. It's the Prelude and Fugue in G major. And so on and so on and so on. Now, I haven't played that for hundreds of years, and I'm not going to start doing it now. But I took the music along tonight just so that I can show you two different ways I learned, or two different pedal techniques I learned with two different teachers. Here's where the pedal starts here. If you have a quick look here, we have some semi-quavers, some quavers, or 16th and 8th notes, depending where you come from in the world. And a few bars later, only 16th notes here. Yeah? And you can see there's a sort of a scale moving here, but lots of jumping around. So my original organ teacher would have said, toes only. When it came to the 16th notes, I'll try that again. Like I said, I haven't played this piece of music for years, okay? So please excuse the little mistakes. The whole point of today's video is to show you how we go about learning pieces of music like this. Now, like I say, I haven't played it like that for about 30 years, or maybe 25, 30 years. So a couple of years later, when I went to university, I had a different organ teacher, and he, in turn, studied with Jean Langlais in Paris. This one of the famous modern French organists and composers, one of the blind organists in Paris, and Langlais taught him a completely different technique in the pedals, which he then passed on to his pupils, and it was much more economical, shall we say. So instead of jumping around between the feet, why not just use one foot to cover a couple of notes and then not jump around so much? And so on and so on. And then when you come to the 16th note passage, we sort of work out a little sort of toe heel fancy thing. That's much easier. Now, I haven't done that for years, literally. Okay, I did it 5 minutes ago when we recorded the German version of this part, but I haven't actually played that for years like that, but my feet remember. Yeah, they still remember, and I don't even have to look. So, it's all still in there. And again, later, when this different passage comes here, yeah, why on earth should I use my left foot to jump all the way up to the second note when I can use my right foot, yeah, to play the notes at the top, giving me some more time to get my left foot all the way up there. Yeah? And so on and so on and so on. So two different ways of playing the same kind of thing. Purists will always say, no, Bach should always be played with the toes only. yeah, maybe on an original Bach organ where the pedals were completely different shape, completely different size. And don't forget, in those days, Bach would have been wearing shoes with a heel that size at the back, a big, thick heel at the back. They didn't have fancy organ shoes. Then again, nor do I. These are just my black nice shoes, as it were. So I think if Bach were playing on a modern organ today with modern shoes, he'd be using his toes and his heels as well. Don't forget, back then, he was the most modern visionary organist there was. So wouldn't he be the same today? So here it is, Toccata and Fugue in D minor. Here's the music, here are the notes. Everybody who has ever wanted to learn an organ wants to play this piece of music. The first thing they want to do, before they even know how to do anything else, that's what they want to play. Now, it's a very, very famous piece of music. Everybody knows it. Accordion players around the world play it as well on street corners and things. So it's a very, very, very well-known piece of music. To play it properly requires a little bit of concentration. Now, the toccata, we're not going to look at the toccata today. The toccata is not the most difficult piece of music Bach ever wrote. It is, however, of course, still a difficult piece of music to play properly because, like I say, everybody knows it. But when it comes to the fugue, we've got a bit more homework to do here. What exactly is a fugue? When I just did the German version a couple of minutes ago, I sort of said, do you actually know what a fugue is? It comes from the Italian word fugare, which you can look up on Google. I'll explain it to you a little bit here. It starts with a theme, and the theme starts in the left hand. And once it gets to there, the right hand immediately takes over with the same theme in a new position higher. Okay, and while that's going on, the left hand's just sort of accompanying along. It's a single line of music. There are no great harmonies at this point, okay? So we have a line in the left hand and now a line in the right hand. So a few bars later, a new line appears in the right hand on top. Now that line is the same as the original line, only an octave higher. And so on, okay? And then, of course, the two lines that we've had up to now, they are then underneath that line accompanying it. With me so far? That carries on for a while, and that sort of modulates around a few ideas until we arrive on the next page where the fourth theme appears. And this is now in the pedals. And it's one of those themes that's actually perfect for pedals. It's not difficult at all. It's just right foot and left foot alternating the whole way. The right foot has only one note, and then the left foot just plays a scale, basically, okay? And when you mix that together, you've got it. Now, once the pedals have started, the other hands are, of course, doing other stuff on top, okay? They're answering that theme. Every time the theme is played, there's an answer to the theme, and that's pretty much the same every time as well. And Bach is very clever. He modulates us through as many keys as he can, and eventually we get back to the theme slightly later again. And there's no pedals going on here. It's all very simple. The pedals reappear a lot of bars later in a completely new key. We're now in C minor. So we started in D minor, our answer is in G minor, yeah, and then it goes back to D minor, and then it goes back to G minor where the pedals come in the first time, and we're modulating around all over the place. Here are now the pedals in C minor, oh my goodness. And then again, he takes us through hundreds of different keys and gets us somewhere where suddenly the theme reappears in the left hand, hidden in the left hand, before immediately being repeated by the pedals all by themselves. No answer, no accompaniment. Blah, 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 and so on, and so on, and so on. That carries on for quite a while. One more theme appears in the pedals later. It appears in the hands a couple of times, and then it ends on this amazing B-flat major chord. Now, it's a piece of music in D minor. Why is it ending in B-flat? Nothing to do with others. Then there comes this sort of recitative, as Bach has written here, this sort of bit of like an improvisation from the organist. I don't want it to end there, I want it to go on. And so on and so on and so on, okay? And that takes us through a bunch of modulations with wonderful diminished chords, finally taking us to the end of the piece, which is once again back in D minor, okay? Now, I'm not going to play the whole thing to you today because, well, like I said before, I haven't played it for over 30 years. What I'm going to do is look at various different bits of it and show you how I'm going to go about learning it for you. But we're not going to do the toccata today because, let's face it, everybody knows what it sounds like. Everybody's tried playing it at some point. We're going to move straight on to the fugue, where it's a bit more difficult and requires rather a lot more concentration. Now, when I say a piece of music by Bach is easy, I don't mean that at all. What I actually mean is it requires a little less concentration than another piece of music by Bach. Bach's organ music is tremendously difficult to play properly. Now, I do know quite a few concert organists who love playing Bach and only play Bach, and they play it beautifully and brilliantly. But even one of my organ professors, who is an international guru in the world of Bach, every time he sits down to play a piece of Bach, it's sort of, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Yeah? Complete panic. And I don't really know very many people who relax completely when they play Bach's music. I certainly can't. So, on with the fugue. How are you going to start learning a piece of music like this? Well, most people, most organ students, are going to start at the beginning and see how far they get. So on and so on and so on. Did you spot the mistake, by the way, when the second theme came in? Yeah, you can start learning like that. Well, I don't learn like that. I can sit at home and do that on the piano. And for most of the technical stuff we're going to need for this piece, that's going to work out. What I do is I look for the first bits that are quite difficult. For example, at the beginning of the second page from bar 48 on, where we now have 3 lines of music, independent lines of music, working away and sort of modulating through a bunch of different keys before the pedal entry comes in. Now, we have 3 lines of music here. Here's the top line. And so on and so on and so on. Here's the bottom line of music, which comes in slightly later. Oops. It goes all the way down to a C there. I was looking at the camera, not looking at my fingers. And then there's this middle line, which sort of splits between the hands, and that's quite confusing. So we're sort of, if I try and play everything together, let's see if it works. I don't know. So apart from that last note in the left hand there, that was pretty much right. Or was it? What you've got to be very careful of, you've got to make sure that all these notes have got the correct length and that they are articulated in such a way that the listener knows where all that movement is. Now on a piano, you would sort of... sort of very legato-y, slurry music. That, a lot of people played Bach like that a few years ago, but nowadays it's become a bit crisper again, and we sort of try to split things up so you can hear what's going on. As an example. Now, that may not have been perfect articulation for some people, but that's the idea. You've got to articulate the lines so that people know what's going on. Let me try that again, the whole thing. Now I'm trying to concentrate on too many things at once. What happens? My hands can't communicate with my brain, which are still communicating with my eyes, and at the same time I'm trying to concentrate on playing something for a decent YouTube video. Yeah? See the concentration that's going on here? And I'm an old man now, or a middle-aged man. Let's try it again. See that? And at that point, my feet jumped into action, and that's where the pedals take over. So that would be the next thing to practice. And here's the pedals again. Now we've got to mix that with the hands. Coordination time. Let's start with the hands together. We've got these 3 lines, remember? We've got the 3 lines competing with each other, and they carry on here. We have the upper line, a middle line, and the lower line, and that carries on over here as well. Yeah. So what do we do here? The top line is dead easy. It's just one note, and so on and so on. The left hand is quite simple. There's a nice little pattern going on. That's not too difficult on its own. Like I say, a nice little pattern that makes it easier. And then there's this middle line. And that's with the top line and the right hand together. Like I say, there's only one note there. Let's try that together. So, right hand on its own, not a problem. Hands together. No problem so far. Now we have to add the feet. How are we going to go about doing that? A lot of people are really panicky when it comes to adding feet with the hands. And a lot of people think left hand and feet together is the most difficult part. Now, I just reminded myself that there's a pattern going on here. So let's see if I can just combine the feet and the left hand and see if it works first time round. Not bad. Pretty much there, okay? I'm going to take the tempo out just a tiny little bit and do that again. Anyone spot the mistake? My left hand started way too early. Let's do it again. What else? Was that right? My left hand's not thinking now. You see, I know I've got this pattern, but when does the pattern start? Let's do it again. Okay? So, there's a little bit of coordination going on there. My brain's trying to tell my fingers what to do. My feet, I'm really concentrating hard on my feet. And I'm hoping my left hand's going to sort of do it automatically. Let's try it with the right hand and the feet together. Where am I going to come in? I'll just join on. That's where I'll come in here. So, that's where I need to start. That worked. So, again, that's maybe slightly easier for a number of people. Right hand and feet together. I'm not sure if I find it easier. I can't actually tell you the answer to that question. I am left-handed. Sometimes I find left hand and pedal really difficult to coordinate. Sometimes I don't. So I can't really tell you what that is. Now then, we have to put it all together. I'm just going to try it and see what happens, okay? So, there it was again. My left hand was a step ahead of itself. So, I need to concentrate on my left hand. Can my right hand work automatically? Let's find out. No, it can't. Right hand was fine, pedals were okay, but the left hand is a problem. So, let's do it again. I think this is the kind of problem most of you are going to have when you start out on a piece of music like this, getting it all together. Take the tempo out, okay? Slow it down. Perfect. That's what it should be, okay? So now I'm going to do that again. Normally I would do that 3 or 4 times at the slow speed so that my muscle memory is there. My fingers and my feet know exactly what's moving at what time, and they remember that, okay? I'm going to speed it up a tiny little bit already. And there we had it again. There was that same mistake I made in my left hand. Okay, let you into a little secret. I'm doing it deliberately. But that's what's going to happen. Most people get very impatient and want to speed everything up as quickly as possible, and that's when the mistakes come in, and that's when you know that you haven't learnt it properly enough in the first place. So you need to go back, slow it down again, maybe separate the parts out again, slow it down, keep repeating it until you've got it exactly right. And then if you're really going to be professional about it, while you're doing this, remind yourself what you're having for dinner tonight, or what you need to go and buy in the shops tomorrow, and things like that. If you can play a Bach fugue and talk to someone at the same time, then you've learnt that fugue. Right, that's going to be it for today. It's getting a bit cold and dark, as you can maybe tell. It's quite late now. Hopefully we're back out and about next week visiting the organ. We wanted to visit this week, but I haven't heard back from the organist yet to let us know if we can go there next week. It might be in 2 weeks' time. We don't know yet. So we'll have to work that out. We'll have something ready, something nice ready for you for next week. Thank you for watching. I hope you've stuck with us right to the end. Thank you for donating. Links below. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Here's a fun piece of music to close off for today. It's up. See you. Bye-bye.